This is an Audio Wool original.
This episode of Frightday is brought to you by Gates of Hell Chipotle Hot Sauce by Frightday. Bold Chipotle flavor blended with habanero peppers for just the right burn. Kissed with garlic and passion fruit. Zero human blood, like none at all. Visit shop.frightday.com before the first batch disappears.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/Frightday.
Was that before or after your head injury?
I mean, before,
Okay.
but yeah, and it wasn't a head injury.
It was a
I
head
bonked my
injury.
noggin.
What do you call that?
A little bit of a whoop.
Whoop.
It's fine. Everyone can crack their melon from time to time.
Of course you can. You just need to understand their fucking ramifications.
Ugh, all right.
Okay, so don't get mad at me because it's been a while since we've done a non.
It's called montage.
Module.
Yeah.
I think I'm having a stroke.
You're not
because
doing
I
well, if
can't-
I'm being honest. And this is coming from me.
I know. Hold on. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get some water. Maybe I'm
Great.
dehydrated. I've got
Okay.
a water bottle up
Well.
here and ready to go.
Good idea.
Grab that real quick.
Cryptids and conspiracies.
Apollo 13, the fakest moon mission that never happened.
I mean, they tried real hard.
Did you see your boy freak out this week over Moon June?
Who?
Tom Hanks, of course.
Back the fuck off! What are y'all doing?
He been listening to us?
He's kind of mad that we pushed back Moon June a bit.
Oh.
I had
I'm sorry,
COVID, Tom Hanks. You should understand you were the first person to have it.
How cool would it be if Tom Hanks actually listened to us?
Okay, you can do this.
Well, I can do this, Byron, because I've made an interesting decision about our report tonight. It's Moon June.
It is, and I almost did it. I almost apologized
What were you going to apologize for?
for getting COVID-19.
You should.
It's it was well.
I'll let you apologize.
I
Continue.
think I go into it in the next episode, so you can look forward to that.
Oh, is this the one where I talk about the Chipmunk Adventure?
Nope, that is a Behind the Screams that's coming out later this week, and after that will be our Dashcam episode where I talk all about getting
And then after that, I get to do 2 more
Nope.
normie movies, and then 2 more after that.
normie. No,
And then 2 more after that.
Stop! You're confusing everyone. No one else knows what's going on.
I'm just really excited about those. I'm sorry.
Right, that's a Behind the Screams episode. Cult.friday.com. Check it out when it comes out.
Yeah.
Where were you?
Well, in honor of Moon June, I decided I was going to do an episode on Project Moon Dust.
Yes, which of course is lunar soil.
It has nothing to do with lunar soil, actually. Well, it might, but in a very roundabout way.
Why did I stayed up very late reading about
There are some interesting things if you start looking into
Basaltic?
moon dust. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been reading about it.
Yeah, you've been reading about it.
Yes.
So there are interesting things that people are doing to try and construct buildings and whatnot out of moon dust, because if we want to build a moon base, like we don't already have one, then we need to figure out how to 3D print out of moon dust and shit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you
I was
should
thinking
look
that-
into it. It's pretty interesting.
That we'd have to maybe prepare or practice the structures, for integrity of the buildings. But
So no, Project Moondust was a very interesting UFO secret operation adjacent to Project Blue Book,
we doing
adjacent
secret
to
space
Grudge,
program? You tricked me?
Yeah.
you tricked me
I
into
didn't-
a
I
secret
didn't
space
trick
program
you.
episode.
I didn't trick you. But here's the problem. It is connected to so many cool incidents. And for me to do justice to any of those incidents, it means that we're not going to do them in the same episode. So, quick little spoiler, Byron. One of the reasons that Project Moondust is as cool as it is it deals with international stuff in addition to domestic stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It had a lot to do with the precursor to the CIA, Central Intelligence Office, essentially. We are talking, there was a crash in China, Nepal, plane disappearance in Australia in the 70s, loops back home with the Kelly Hopkinsville event.
Which we did talk about in an
We
earlier
did,
episode.
but
yeah.
we're going to have to go deeper. So we've got all of these different topics, from the Valentich disappearance in 1978 to the Nepal recovery in 1968. We've got a bunch of things we're going to need to cover, but I can't do them tonight. I have to just talk about the overarching umbrella under which all of these fell, because it's a really cool thing. Are you ready?
You didn't need to say it's cool twice to get people to pay attention.
But I do it to get you to pay attention.
I'm stuck here.
So you remember the Battle of Los Angeles, Byron?
Yes, very familiar.
Anti-aircraft guns went into action against unidentified aircraft in the Los Angeles area shortly after 3 a.m. Pacific wartime this morning. The anti-aircraft guns began barking during a blackout ordered by the 4th Interceptor Command at 2:25 a.m. The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach. Army officials declined to comment on the possibility that the object might have been a blimp. However, it required nearly 30 minutes to travel some 25 miles, far slower than an airplane.
We did another episode about that.
It's a good one. Battle of LA is one of my
It
faves.
goes way back.
Shortly after that, there was something established called, it would eventually be called, Project Blue Fly. The whole idea was to recover debris that had fallen from space. Now remember, this was in the 40s.
We had no idea what space was made of.
Anything,
I'm sure we knew a little bit.
anything falling from space was by nature not from Earth, because it wasn't until 57 that Sputnik launched.
Yeah.
It really reframes the timeline, because if you start going into Black Vault, of course, has been essential in this, but there are also some international documents.
For people who don't know, the Black Vault is a digital
repository
of
FOIA
government
requested
documents surrounding UFO and other
things that they didn't want us to know, and they finally threw in the towel. But what happens was, and Byron, we've even talked about this, how the Kenneth Arnold incident in the spring, right before the Roswell crash in 47, was kind of the beginning of the whole UFO craze. But really,
it goes before that.
yeah. So Project Blue Fly and Project Moon Dust reframe the timeline, because when you start looking into the paperwork that's been released in bits and pieces, you realize that actually there was a huge flap of UFOs dating well back into the 40s, probably beginning more with the Foo Fighters incidents and then the Battle of LA, and a lot of things that were happening both internationally and domestically in the mid and late 40s. It's no longer this timeline that begins with Arnold. What happened with Kevin Arnold's sighting was...
Kenneth. Did you say Kevin?
I did say Kevin about 15 times.
I don't know if you did.
Kenneth Arnold.
Kenneth.
I think I might have said Ken a couple times,
That's
maybe.
fine.
All right.
Just slid into...
What happened in the spring of 1947 when Arnold saw his flying discs, the government had to pivot. It was the first time they were faced with irrefutable, public, very forward-facing UFO reports. But it had been going on for a while before that. And that timeline is what makes things so interesting. And also why we're talking about this tonight. So, retrieval of crash debris started shortly after the Battle of LA in the early 40s. It officially became Project Moondust right around 1957. Again, we were recovering debris, which had to have been from outer space in one respect or another. But in 1957, it became recovering other countries' test space debris in addition to questionable space debris that falls to Earth.
There was incidents where we were getting, I mean, not UFOs, but I guess the air balloons from Russia.
The air balloons.
And also the initial thought that the Roswell crash was actually deformed children that
Yep.
the Russian government smushed into an
Right.
aircraft.
Right, because we wanted to make the Russians as mean as we could.
Yeah, a little Snowpiercer situation.
It was a little bit.
Small hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, for folks who are just now starting to listen to us, we did an episode on mystery airships from like the late 1800s, back episode 157.
We
So
did.
We are kind of
And I think in that episode, we touched briefly on something, Byron, called ghost rockets.
probably.
But we didn't go very deep with them, and I'm going to talk just for a couple minutes about them. So in January of 1946, so again, this is pre-Arnold, but we are now in the phase where the government is recognizing things are crashing to Earth, both in our country and around the world, and they are trying to recover it. Of course, the driving concern is it's the Russians. I mean,
Yes.
that was the concern between the end of World War II and 1991. Like, that was all we ever worried about.
Before
was
that,
it was
it
the
was
Russians.
the Japanese. Bombs, balloon bombs
They
that they were
did.
sending.
They did. That is true. But there are a lot of things that were attributed to that then were discovered not to have anything to do with the Japanese.
Oh.
There were also things that were happening over Japan and Germany that they thought it was us doing something,
So
and it
who was
wasn't
it?
us.
It's always the Russians?
No, I think it's always been.
You think it's those guys up there? Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yep.
right.
January 18th, 1946, there is an American C-54 transport plane that's flying over France, and it happens to be over a pretty rural area. They saw what they thought was a meteor fall from view and then suddenly shoot back up, which meteors don't do, Byron, in case you were wondering.
Even if you bonk off the ground, they're not going to bounce
And
that
then
high.
it sunk again following like this roughly hyperbolic pathway, which I love a good hyperbola.
Of course you do. Geometry.
This was one of many ghost rocket sightings. There was a gathering body of information. The government was getting concerned, so they assigned a gentleman by the name of Hoyt S. Vandenberg in 1946, in summer of 46, so about 8 months after this incident, to be the head of the Central Intelligence Group, which was the precursor to the CIA.
yeah.
And he sent a top secret memorandum to the president. All right. There will be a FOIA requested copy of this document. The show notes of this episode, Frightday.com.
We'll throw a picture of him too, because, I mean,
Oh, of Hoyt?
listen, you would never guess what this guy looks like.
Actually, I don't know that I looked at a
He
picture of
looks
him.
exactly like the person that you think.
100%.
Yep.
100% what you would expect. There are, for those of you who are Twin Peaks fans out there, his character is believed to have been the inspiration for a main character in the Twin Peaks show. I'll let you guess which one.
Okay.
Yep. He sends this memo in August of 1946. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Here are the major points of the memo. Number 1, ghost rockets have been seen over Sweden since May. Norway and Sweden have imposed a news blackout about them.
And they were called ghost rockets because they go, ooh. And then they blow up and kill people.
The whole idea that Norway and Sweden were having a news blackout, this really highlights one of the reasons Project Blue Fly, which evolved into Project Moondust, are so important. We've got physical evidence and we've got international issues involved, which I think sometimes falls by the wayside. It's like an afterthought when we discuss UFOs and the government and disclosure and all of this. Like, guess what? Other countries have shit too. And maybe we can get more from them. Anyhow, so that was point 1 of the memo. Point 2, there are at least 10 known crash sites for these missiles or rockets in Sweden, but official sources, especially via the military attaché in Stockholm, say the fragments recovered haven't led to any clear conclusions. In other words, they're mysterious. Director of Intel, this is point number 3, Director of Intel concludes the missiles are jet-propelled, they do not contain a warhead, but they do seem to self-destruct. They fly further than the V-1.
The furthest,
The furthest at the
traveling
time.
that yeah.
So they were worried this could be Russia developing new material. And they actually cite in the memo, Hoyt does, that is, that perhaps the German scientists that Russia recovered after the war, like their own little Operation Paperclip Club, might be developing something beyond what our Operation Paperclip Club was developing. Next point of these missiles was that their course was controlled and they were launching from some place that they believed could be a Soviet-controlled point in the Gulf of Finland.
Different Gulf.
Yeah, not us, because it was over Europe. And finally, because they at this point almost assumed it was Russia, they believed it had to be an intentional display of power, like a purposeful
military
flex.
exercise.
Yeah, because they have all of Siberia to conduct tests over.
Yeah.
And instead they're doing it over Sweden. Now, we obviously started trying to figure out how they ran, assumed that Russia had been doing it, and a gentleman named Colonel Howard McKoy, spelled differently,
The wrong way.
the
I
wrong
call
way.
it,
Yeah. He was working at the American Embassy in Sweden and started gathering info. He was like scooping up all the deets that he could find, very spy-like, okay? Combined with similar sightings from the U.S., including one sighting at the very beginning of August, so about the same time that Hoyt was writing this memo, there's a gentleman named Captain Jack Puckett.
Close.
Yeah, I know, so close. Flying a C-47 transport north of Tampa, and he saw a cigar-shaped craft. And this made me think about something. We called all of these things cigar-shaped crafts. I realized, like, back in the day, what we thought looked like a cigar, maybe people nowadays associate more with the Tic Tac.
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah. So a Tic Tac cigar
But who
shaped
even
craft.
eats Tic Tacs?
Okay, you know what's really funny? My dad keeps Tic Tacs by the masses,
like the little
because
box
my
there.
daughters are obsessed with them. And like if they're misbehaving and we're at some public thing, Grandpa gives them each a Tic Tac.
Spearmint?
Any flavor he's got. They love the
Orange.
mint ones. Yeah, they actually prefer mint over orange. The white mint, they prefer over orange. How weird is that?
Orange one. Who the fuck thought orange should be a mint?
But it's great.
It tastes good. It's a candy, though.
It is a candy. It is not a mint. I agree. Completely agree. Captain Jack Puckett said that this was about 2 times the size of a B-29, obviously cigar shaped, so it was long and cylindrical, luminous portholes.
So little windows.
And he also described that there was a trailing flame behind it.
Okay.
Which is very different from a Tic Tac.
Of course. Alien technology would not use that kind of propulsion.
Right, unless it was rudimentary alien technology. Or they were on fire. I know.
Sightings have come along. Our idea of what it is always closely mimics the
can I tell
technology
you-
that we have.
Well, but it doesn't closely mimic because listen to this.
Well, remember, like blimps, there was a lot of airship.
Watched for approximately 3 minutes, was on course to collide with them, and then suddenly veered across their pathway when it was only 1,000 yards out, and it maneuvered in ways that made no sense to these pilots. All right? Now,
Like
here's my
spinning
theory.
burlies
You want to
or
hear my
what?
theory? Again, I do really subscribe to the idea that it's us. Okay?
Us from the future.
I'm going to pull a connection to Montauk, but only jokingly.
Do we have to?
Only jokingly, but the concept I think is illustrated well there. You know how they talk about every so many years we've got these Earth cycles, and so
40.
like when they jumped through time, they were jumping in 30-year intervals.
It was 40.
It was 30.
What?
Oh God, don't fucking question me on that, man. It was 30.
I don't think so.
43, 83. Yes, it was.
You
Stop
said
questioning
83 and then 20.
83, 23. That's 40 years.
Yeah, you just said 30.
It was even on record. I think I did say 30.
You
Yeah, it was
did.
40. It was 40. It was 40. You're right. You're right. I told you I was
You don't
having a
need
stroke
to-
tonight.
You don't need to apologize. You just need to be more open to.
No, you were right.
I was.
40 years. Every 40 years.
I've heard more of you talking about this than anyone.
I don't know. I've listened to a lot of hours
That's
of other
true.
people
Okay.
talking.
Yep.
40-year jumps.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's something that regimented, but I do think maybe there's some regulation with how far back our future selves can travel. And so the technology that we're seeing is advancing
Staggered with
because they're traveling to the same interval back from where they are.
I don't like the theory.
I knew you wouldn't like it, but I like it anyway. Okay. That year, end of 1946, Christmas party at Wright-Patterson, which happens to be where this secret operation is
It's gotta
housed.
be a fucking rager.
Well-
People shooting AR-13s
Yeah.
into the air.
Yeah, AR-13s.
A couple
came
years
right before the 14s.
14
Yeah.
eventually became the 15.
Yep. Yeah.
Just having a fun time drinking nog, shooting at reindeer and stuff.
But unfortunately, McKoy and his colleague got called away. They had to take a call. Apparently, the intel facility at Wright-Patterson, which was part of the Air Material Command, there had been enough things going on. The project got real, it got official, and it was the birth of Blue Fly and the birth of Blue Book, because this is when they decided that they actually needed to. Now, here's what's fascinating. When you look at the records from Project Blue Book that have come out through FOIA,
We've done another episode on that as well.
again, everything seems to start with Kenneth Arnold, but there are signs that there were cases before Arnold that were wiped out
Of the book.
of Blue Book.
Just
yeah,
not
like
covered
records.
or pages
just
missing?
not covered.
Well, of course some things weren't covered.
Now, no, but they had been investigated, but not by Blue Book. This adds credibility to the idea that Blue Book was not a complete record of sightings. The FOIA requests have uncovered incidents in England and Virginia, but there's no record of them in Blue Book.
Was Miracle of the Sun in Blue Book?
No, it was not. Moving those records to another group, because obviously we've had multiple projects working on this stuff at any given time. But
Probably
then they
a couple
could,
at the same time.
yeah, and exactly, because they could kind of like siphon off the stuff that was really secret that they could never let people know.
They're Bob Lazaring.
Yes.
They're protecting some of the information by
Bingo.
only allowing certain people to get so much
Bingo.
access.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And so the
Oh, no, I
fact
just had that moment where I realized I've been Stockholm syndromed.
No, you're just
No,
you're just waking up.
I'm not waking up.
You're waking up.
I just woke up and I'm sad.
No, you're waking up. You're waking up.
Nope.
So because we've got no record of these things in Project Blue Book, but we do have record in FOIA requests, we know that someone else was tracking them. And there was another repository for the monitoring of these incidents. Here's my philosophy and my theory. Once the Arnold sighting happened, the government had probably a weekend panicked.
They wrote a manual
Collab.
how to cover up.
Right. Because
Say it's
they needed
tinfoil.
to be able to say that this is the first we've seen of this so that they could write him off as a loop-de-loop, which means they had to erase the previous records and ship them to something else that would never be uncovered. And they could say, yeah, Blue Book is looking into stuff, but we haven't found anything. There's absolutely nothing. And so clearly this Arnold character is just a loon, obviously.
Huh.
Yep.
Do we know what the previous book was?
Well, I think it was Blue Book, but I think that there's a project named, and there are even some FOIA requests that say these are part of a. Hold on,
Light Blue
I'm gonna get the wording.
Cyan.
I'm gonna get the wording to read to you because when Gwyneth was reading it to me, it was making me laugh really, really hard.
If you're gonna say that,
okay, so there's an app called Speechify.
I don't think we should plug Speechify.
Well,
this sounds like sponsored content.
Here's what I would say. You know, early PDF conversion software that like messed up at least 25% of what you were trying to convert?
That's Speechify.
That's Speechify.
Which is an app where you can scan in words and it reads it to you.
It's messed up, and you can choose to have it in Gwyneth Paltrow's voice, which is just really unsettling.
Yeah.
I prefer Lacerda.
It's funny because she seems completely unenthused with whatever
With
she's
everything
reading.
she's reading. Yeah,
it's
which
like,
I guess
remember
is part of
TomTom, the early GPS for cars? Where
I
you could
do.
download voices and they're like, turn
Yes.
right at the roundabout.
Right, it's like, why are people...
That was fun.
He definitely makes it boring.
And it was like Darth
so does...
Vader or like Mario. It's like, it's me, turn right.
I wish that's who it was. If it was Mario...
A TomTom voice? I bet there was some good ones.
Oh, that would be incredible.
Snoop Dogg.
Oh, I can listen to it with
You
Snoop.
could. Homer Simpson could tell you turn right or turn left back in the day.
TomTom. I was thinking about my Speechify.
No, I'm sorry. The Chipmunks, though. They do have the Chipmunks.
For Speechify?
No, for TomTom.
Okay, fuck TomTom. Nobody uses TomTom. Find out what else I can listen to here.
I'm not doing that. Not if you're going to talk like that.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Robert G. Todd, in a letter from the Air Force dated July 1, 1987, learned that the nickname Project Moondust no longer officially exists. According to Colonel Philip E. Thompson, Deputy Assistant Chief of Staff, Intelligence at Project Moondust has been replaced by another name that is not releasable. FDD Foreign Technology Division, headquartered at Wright-Patterson, duties are listed in a classified passage in a classified regulation that is being withheld because it is currently improperly classified.
And this is all part of our big tie-in.
We're now sponsored by
This
Goop. We're
episode
actually
is brought to you
owned
by Goop. The whole month is being brought to you by Moon Juice, Sex Dust.
Moon Juice Sex Dust Goop Month.
Turn up your libido, baby.
She's a nightmare.
She's
She
fine.
really is, but I
All right,
love
let's
her
not get too
in The
far past the
Politician.
point of what she just said.
Okay. The point is, FOIA documents have acknowledged that Moondust stopped existing, but it had been replaced by a new organization, and the name of that organization was still properly classified. So we don't know what it is.
Scoop.
It's probably a scoop. You're right. That's probably why she's doing this.
She didn't choose to read that.
She didn't. It actually took a lot of effort to get that into a PDF form that she would read to me. And it's
Yeah.
still, her emphasis is all wrong, and she can't read dates. Instead of saying 1987, she says 1987.
That's true. That's how you say years. I like it.
She's a fucking alien. Now, Byron, here's a doc that if you've got some serious chops, I want you to try and track this down. Nobody's been able to find it, but if anyone can, it's you. Something called An Estimate of the Situation. It was a doc for intelligence created by the Sign officers, Project Sign, in 1948. And the conclusion of this estimate of the situation was, it's aliens. I mean, obviously, they worded it much more eloquently.
Well, what did they say?
Nobody has it.
Oh, this is a secret
But
document.
there's a description of it in an older book. It was a big, thick file. It exists somewhere.
So it used to also be known as Project Saucer. Is that the right one?
Project Saucer, Project Grudge, Sign.
Project Grudge rules.
I know Grudge is a really fun
yes.
one. I agree. The problem that we have here is we have so many different titles, and that's deliberate. You know, it's very easy. You know that magic trick with the 3 cups and the balls, except it's like 27 cups and they're like moving.
Yeah.
What's it called?
I was
Cup
going to say
trick?
3-card Monty, but
I was going to say 3 girls, 2 cups or something like that, but that wasn't funny.
No, you're a pervert. You're disgusting. Jesus Christ.
At this point in my research, I came across a case that I don't know how we haven't studied before. The Miles City 1948 case.
There are a handful that I keep from you.
Really? Why? Because like in our 47th year, you're going to be like, okay, Kelly, you thought we were out.
We still have to do cattle mutilation in Montana.
Oh, I've been doing tons of research on that.
I think I've been holding back because you waited until both of the sources are now dead. Like we had a chance to actually contact
They both died?
Yes. Over the course of this show, we've lost people.
Stop letting that happen. You're the producer.
I know. And I give you a lot of ideas. And then
So do it.
I'm not in charge of you choosing ones.
I'll do it.
All
Get
right,
me an
well-
interview. I'll do an interview.
I have 3 interviews in the works for you, and you just...
I keep asking for interviews.
I forward emails.
Oh yeah, that weird one. Give me somebody I asked for, not some random fucking cryptid dude that nobody. Who the fuck is he?
You wrote a very popular book.
Very popular.
Yeah.
How many copies has it sold?
I
12.
have no idea.
12.
No.
Okay, so Miles City 1948 case is added to the list because that was in here.
Miles City, Montana,
Yep.
of course.
There's also a document at one point that we're going to go into called The Analysis of Flying Object Incidents in the U.S., December 10th, 1948. That was from the Office of Naval Intelligence. But clearly, which is interesting because I guess Office of Naval Intelligence pops up again, right? Mm-hmm. They seem to be all over the place.
Oh, did you hear?
Oh, no.
I was so fucking right about what happened on that ship in 2019. The footage that Corbell was talking about.
Yeah.
Tiny dots everywhere.
Yeah.
They were drones from a Hong Kong cargo ship.
For sure?
Yeah.
Like it's been for
Acknowledged
sure.
by the government. Yeah.
I need to look into that because I haven't heard that.
I talked about it on Casual Frightday, of course. Twitch.tv/Frightday
So
every
hold on,
Friday.
Hong Kong acknowledged it or we acknowledged it?
We did. They have yet to.
Interesting. Okay. So, Byron, there are about 1,000 pages of documents that have been released from the government, primarily CIA, but also Department of State, Air Force, Defense Intelligence Agency. One of my favorite documents is the document that talks about JFK, Marilyn Monroe, UFOs, mentions moon dust.
I mean, huge Marilyn Monroe
Huge.
report. That was one of the little side stories. Is that
JFK was having relations with Marilyn and spilled Z-beans. They were taping them and were like, well, shit.
Don't spoil the whole
Sorry.
series if people haven't heard it.
Yeah,
yet.
that's true.
Go
That's
back
true.
and check it out.
Okay, spoiler, sorry. Byron, I sent you some documents, and one of them is from April 1961. It's a Department of the Air Force Headquarters, United States Air Force, Washington, D.C.
Sure, the U.S. Air Force Intelligence Guidance Collection Letter number 4.
Yes, and what is the subject of this?
This USAF Intelligence Collection Guidance Letter, originally classified confidential, describes and provides guidance for Project Moondust reporting. Several items of interest appear in the document. Classification levels of moondust alerts and reports, focus of moondust on foreign Earth satellite vehicles, and destination agencies for moondust reports among them. While this document certainly does not eliminate the possibility that moondust reports may contain UFO-related information, we think, who's we? Jim? Who's this Jim guy? Sufon?
Yeah, Sufon Sysop.
Tell me what the heck that is. No idea?
No.
Well, and Dale Gouldy.
So if MUFON is mutual, maybe KUFON is like
Civilian?
or
Mutual? Close?
combative.
I don't know.
Mutual and combative seem like opposites.
Whatever. Jim Klotz. So what is this thing about?
It talks about how things are supposed to be gathered and reported through Project Moondust, and it absolutely focuses on the idea that everything within here could be discussed as earthly in origin.
So it's the methodology as well as excuses for...
Yes, but what makes all of this interesting is in the FOIA requests that came out, or in the results of the FOIA requests, the documentation, moondust is mentioned in tons of cases where the material is unidentified, and it is definitely UFO-related crashes, not just crashes that we believe have something to do with another country within our own Earth. The directions and guidance are pretty clear.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the MUFON handbook.
It does actually a little bit.
What to report? The position of the observer? Is that their position of belief? Is that what they're looking for?
I believe like latitude and longitude.
Physical position. Okay.
Yep.
Time of sightings in Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, to the nearest minute. Description of the sighting, azimuth and elevation of object when first sighted, azimuth and elevation of object when last sighted, apparent size of object as compared to the size of a coin. or other familiar items held at arm's length. This is the most like weird noir detective technique that I've seen in a bit. Color and description of object and changes, if any, during sighting, unusual or other than normal sounds heard during the sighting. What would that be? Like the ghost noise of a ghost? Okay. Weather conditions prevailing at the time of the sighting and any other data associated with the sighting.
Now, what action is to be taken?
In the event a decayed space object is suspected of having descended, the following actions are required. Verify location of reported object. Ascertain identity as accurately as possible. Make every effort to obtain object for U.S. if it appears to be a portion of Soviet space vehicle or other material deemed to be of air technical intelligence interest.
That is pretty encompassing.
Well, yeah, I mean, they straight up say Soviet, so...
But then the sentence after that is
arranged.
or
other material deemed...
to be of air technical intelligence interest. I'm not saying it means aliens, but it certainly would fall under there. If they did mean that, it would fall under there.
I mean, that's anything else.
Exactly.
Should I always be thinking anything else means extraterrestrials as well?
When it's an Air Force document about recovering crash debris, yes.
Yes, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Arrange expeditious delivery of recovered object to Aerospace Technical Intelligence Center, AFCIN-4A, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio.
Now pause.
Yes.
What I was talking about at the beginning of this, the group that started at Wright-Patterson in 1948 and Mr. McKoy who was involved in it, that is that department. And at that point, there were no crashed items from other countries because no other countries were sending things. Nobody was sending things into space in 1948.
Yeah.
That same place is receiving this debris on record. So it's at one point it was receiving debris that came from space in the 1940s as well, but there was nothing coming from space that was from the Earth because we couldn't put things up there yet.
Hadn't been up there.
Right.
Technically.
Right.
Who
right.
knows?
Who knows? I guess that's true. That is true.
Obtain permission for U.S. examination of object in the event it cannot be recovered for U.S. retention. What does that mean?
It means...
Like if it's on fire or something?
So, for example, like the when I was talking about the ghost rockets that had been seen over Sweden and all the crashes in Sweden and how their government was being pretty hush-hush about it, if we could at least examine it, even if they wouldn't allow us to keep it.
Oh, okay. So this is an international paper here.
Bingo.
Okay. Where to send reports, of course. You reports in response to paragraph 5A or B above should cite the unclassified nickname Moondust and be addressed to the following. 1. Headquarters AUSAF, AFCIN, Washington 25 DC for action, ATIF, AFCIN-4A, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, Space Track R&D activity, Hanscom Field, Massachusetts, and NORAD, which is, what's that stand for?
North American something
Radar?
defense, radar defense.
Aerospace defense?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And Air Force Base, Colorado.
Yep.
Staying out of the desert, huh?
Yeah.
Weird.
I mean, I guess, or at least officially they are.
Yeah.
Another document.
Oh, I gotta read more fucking...
No. You're good. I'm going to read the next part. Another document in 1961 from the U.S. Air Force states that, quote, in addition to their staff duty assignments, intelligence team personnel have peacetime duty functions in support of such Air Force projects as Moondust, Blue Fly, and UFO, and other AFCIN-directed quick reaction projects which require intelligence team operational capabilities. So I want you to think about, I don't know, like firemen or the Ghostbusters, and like they get this radar that goes Moondust, 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 and then they like zoom down the pole and then they go to wherever it is to get the material.
One of those things was a real thing, and one is a fictional idea. But they both are in a firehouse.
They are.
You could have
They
just
are, so
said,
it works.
Well,
I just like the idea of the Ghostbusters. I've been thinking about them a lot recently.
Really?
Yeah.
There's something strange
in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Unidentified flying objects. Headquarters, United States Air Force has established a program for investigations of reliably reported unidentified flying objects within the United States. Clearly, they are citing Blue Book in that, all right?
CUFON is the computer UFO network, by the way.
What the
It's fine.
Operation Blue Fly has been established to facilitate expeditious delivery to Foreign Technology Division of moon dust or other items of great technological intelligence interest. Moon dust, as a specialized aspect of its overall material exploration program, headquarters United States Air Force, has established Project Moondust to locate, recover, and deliver descended foreign space vehicles. So that is very careful wording, right? And you would think it could apply to a few different things. But then, Byron, within the FOIA requests, there is a very specific document which is oddly and seemingly intentionally almost illegible. But here's what you can pull from it. It's from 1965. Fragment metal recovered in the Republic of the Congo, origin believed to be an unidentified flying object.
Oh my God.
How fucking cool is that?
So I know that on this week's episode Behind the Screams, I did briefly mention the movie Congo.
I know.
You know that I believe it was a diamond in the movie that they used to make a very powerful laser that cuts a bunch of monkeys in half. They're bad monkeys.
Monos. No such thing as a bad mono.
Well, you haven't seen these fucking guys. Maybe, in reality, the material that they used to cut real-life monkeys in half was UFO.
Could be.
Metal.
Maybe.
I mean, any excuse to talk about the feature film Congo, I'll take it.
Byron, as I hinted, we will get into this in future episodes. I cannot wait. Like, we're almost going to have like a monthly moon dust case.
I mean, we don't have to.
Really interesting debris recovered in China.
Yeah.
In Nepal, Congo, Miles City. I mean, we've got all of these places that are just, it's fascinating. And the international aspect of it is something that I hear bits and pieces of, but I have not gotten into. And I am very excited to get into.
Thinking quarterly, but we also have the Malmstrom Air Force Base Revisited that we still need to do in person.
Yeah, when are we doing that? God, I hate that city, but I'll go.
I don't even think we have to enter the city of Great Falls.
Okay.
I don't even think we need to drink at the bar that Nathaniel Barjona and Doc went to.
Is that the fucking mermaid one?
No, we could go to the Sip and Dip.
I don't like it. I don't like anything about Great Falls. Do you know the last time I was in... No, that's not true. Second to last time I was in Great Falls was with like a really gross old lawyer I worked for, and it was not
Did he
fun.
go to the Sip and Dip, the bar where there's
did he ever?
literal mermaid? I mean, I guess they're people just dressed up as mermaids.
No, they're mermaids.
They're mermaids? Wow, how come
Mermaids are real too. Did you not know this?
in Great Falls they are?
Or did you not know this?
There'll be a picture in the show notes of the episode of Frightday.com.
You really didn't know this?
That mermaids are real?
I don't even believe in mermaids.
You
Sorry.
don't?
Nope.
Wow. Okay.
Now, the two most prominent people you can research if you'd like to dig in a little bit more to moon dust, Clifford E. Stone, who's a retired U.S. Army gentleman from New Mexico. He worked his butt off trying to get FOIA documents before before Black Vault was a thing. Everything's blue now.
Yeah. Maybe the real one is.
And for years, the responses to those FOIA requests to Mr. Stone would say, we have no such records. We have no such records. We have no such records. And
That's the hard thing is you have to be specific, but not too specific.
no, but he was being specific enough, and they just lied. And then eventually he broke through. One letter in 1991 said, we can neither confirm nor deny the existence or non-existence of records responsive to your request regarding projects or operations known as Blue Fly or Moondust. Eventually, though,
Sometimes
it
I
happened.
feel like that's the response of a person who's received 40 emails in like...
But in 1998, in response to an independent request on Project Moondust and Operation Blue Fly by a New Jersey citizen, not him, different person, the information relating to Project Moondust remains classified. So here's the issue that we have. People have this idea that the government's going to be like super organized and methodical, and this is why things are on lockdown. No, it's not always evil. Sometimes they're just stupid or lazy, and they don't want to look for the documents. They might just say, we've got a ton of other shit going on, and we're not going to actually go look for this. This guy seems crazy. We're just going to tell him it doesn't exist. We're going to tell him it doesn't exist. Now, sometimes I think it is nefarious, for sure. But when one report finally gets out saying, oh, yeah, we do have that, but it's classified, then it's like, okay, it does exist now. We can say it does exist. And then that's what eventually allowed them to get through and get over 1,000 pages of documents that mention moondust, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is. But I get the feeling that these specialized projects are always ran by a very small handful of people.
They are, and then the records aren't super clear,
Yeah.
and they aren't automatically like in every system. I mean, you think about the stuff with regard to all the missing moon landing stuff. Now, yeah, you could say that we didn't land on the moon, or you could say that they're fucking disorganized. But the nice thing about them being super disorganized is when the occasion arises that they want to be nefarious, it's much easier to sneak in there because they're so disorganized. But here are some things that we do know, okay? Clifford Stone did work for the Air Force. He and the other guy that you can read the most about Project Moondust from, a gentleman named Kevin Randall. Byron, can you tell us a little bit about Mr. Randall?
I mean, ufologist, sci-fi writer, which I don't like when they add that, but
Why
historical
not?
fiction.
He wrote one of the most respected books on Roswell.
One of the first ones, the UFO crash at Roswell. I wonder if we use that as...
I did.
Yeah?
Yep.
Source for our Roswell
Significant, yep.
series. But she's
Yeah.
available now on cassette if you want to take a summer road trip in your dead grandma's car.
Or your living grandma who just wants to lend it to
She
you.
wants to lend
They
you
don't
a
have
Buick?
to be dead. Fuck, Byron,
No
that's
one
morbid.
Well, okay, whatever. But
God. And there's a bit of a tiff between Randall and Stone. Randall thinks that Stone's full of it. Stone thinks that Randall's an asshole. Stone's dead, so I guess Randall won. But
someone got the car.
someone did get
Someone
the car.
got the car.
But both of them say some very similar things. Ironically, Randall's reason to dismiss Stone, one of his most verbal publicized reasons, was according to official government records, he was only like basically a receptionist, Stone was. But if you listen to him talk, he clearly wasn't just a receptionist.
Okay.
And I do very much believe in the government's ability to completely change
Kevin's
records.
a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah,
So
Kevin's a smart guy too, but Stone was not a moron. And in fact, these are some nuggets of information that finally started filtering through in the 90s when the FOIAs just didn't stop. First of all, New Mexico Senator Jeff Bingaman and then another New Mexico Senator named Pete Domenici, these two guys on behalf of Stone requested information. And in a response to a letter from specifically Senator Bingaman in 1992, the Air Force said, "There is no Project Moondust or Operation Blue Fly. These missions have never existed."
what about all this other shit?
Right. So that right there is being, I think, deliberately obfuscative, because if you've got an annoying citizen who's just sending all these FOIA requests, like, don't get me wrong, that's not how it should be handled.
But Jeff,
But then you've got a senator sending it. I think now we've moved into the realm of outright lie. And then he responded and said, actually, I have this documentation showing acknowledgement of blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
And then they responded again and said, oh, just kidding. The projects no longer exist, nor do their files. Classified reports that existed, if any, are presumably destroyed. This is where it's like, really? Really? Then in 98, another request to the Air Force about Moondust and Blue Fly, all of these using the same verbiage. So it's not like it's slightly different requests,
Sure,
okay?
it's recycled.
Now the response is, the information relating Project Moondust remains classified.
We're back to classified.
Right. So it didn't exist, and then it did exist, but it had been destroyed, and now it isn't destroyed, but it's classified. And then finally, here's some little nuggets of truth that we got. April 1997, Air Force acknowledges to Stone that Operation Blue Fly's mission included space objects and unidentified flying objects, if any were reported available for recovery. It goes on to state that no Soviet bloc planes were ever downed in the U.S., which is pretty impressive, but
think
also
that's
not true.
I was going to say.
Yep. In fact, there's a document that shows that Operation Blue Fly was assigned to the intelligence exploitation of a Soviet-built Cuban helicopter that crashed in Florida. It's just weird. Very, very weird. All right, quick rundown of some of the things that we are eventually going to cover, okay? Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Moondust went to recover in 1965, an object in Kecksburg, which Leslie Keene, who has risen to prominence with a lot of the recent New York Times UFO reporting, very respected reporter. She's like, think about a Linda Moulton Howe, but way more legitimized.
I mean, she's
If
at the top of her crazy game.
Yeah, she's like a socially acceptable George Knapp.
I mean, I think a lot of people think George Knapp is
Yeah,
socially...
but she's like socially acceptable with like a whole different level of folks. You know what I mean?
She still hangs out with the Ancient Aliens crowd, though.
I don't think she does.
Does she not?
She kind of separates
Okay.
her. She's a bit of an elitist within the UFO world, I would say.
Okay. But this person...
She's amazing, but she did a bunch of research on Kecksburg and specifically did a bunch of FOIA requests, which also led to Moondust files being released, all right? Sudan in 1967, Nepal in 68, as we discussed, Cape Town, South Africa in 68, multiple places in South America in 1970. All of these are in the FOIA request. These are different events that Moondust was called to. Like, you know, the beeping alarm, and they go down the pole and they go. These are the places
prefer
they went
it to be a middle of the night phone call.
I really like the alarm better. And the red
real,
strobing light.
Real traditional, like the phone rings and she's like,
I think the light's more traditional.
Yeah, pack your bags. And she's
No, they're ready to go. Their bag is packed.
My version's cooler and different. But
Leaving on a jet plane.
I'm saying, honey, do you have to go?
Yep.
He's like, yep, I do. And then he packs his bag, gets a coffee.
Yep.
But yours is some weird fucking Ghostbusters.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we've got Bolivia in 1970, Panama, Paraguay.
Cool.
So we are going to cover these.
Not all of them.
I think I actually do want to cover all
Maybe
of them eventually.
Maybe in the next 8 to 10 years.
Kecksburg is one of the most important ones because since it is domestic, there's a lot more documentation on it. And we may have to do actually multiple episodes
Where's
on just the
Kecksburg?
Pennsylvania,
just
the Kecksburg incident because of Leslie Keene's incredible research. And there's a lot out there now that we can dig into by way of her. So, moral of the story tonight, Byron. The government has been looking for UFOs for a long time. Starting at least in the 1940s, they had recovered material that they were working with. And there will be in the show notes of this episode a link to an interview that was part of the Stephen Greer Disclosure Project with Clifford Stone before Clifford Stone kicked the bucket.
The most ripped ER doctor on the planet.
Yeah, he's there's got to be something unhealthy about that, right? Because he's like old and he's still got real muscly arms.
Yeah, he's on
Roids?
hormone replacement therapy. He's on testosterone, of course.
I don't know.
He looks like that Dinner Impossible guy.
Oh, yeah.
What's that guy's name?
I don't know. Have you ever had Impossible Burger yet?
Yeah, of course.
It's really fucking good.
Robert Irvine is the guy I'm thinking.
Oh. You don't have to question everything your government tells you, but I will say this. There's a lot of cool information out there, and you shouldn't automatically dismiss things unless they have to do with the exploitation or minimizing of another race of human beings, another group of human beings.
We almost made it through an episode. We almost made it through an episode.
It's 2022. We're not going to make it through a whole episode without me doing something. All right, another completely not political hot tip I have for everybody. In searching for Project Moondust material, I accidentally stumbled upon this really cool television show that ran in 1978 and 1979 called Project UFO.
Air Force investigators get nowhere when they question the adults of a small town about reports of an unidentified flying object.
Their technology's got to be way out compared to ours.
So they turn to an 11-year-old boy who may hold the key to the mystery. Project UFO, Jack Webb's hit new adventure series based on authentic Air Force files. Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central. Then loose change.
So it was started by the guy who was Dragnet, just the fax man.
I don't.
Jack Webb.
Cool.
All right. So he became obsessed with Project Blue Book and researched all of the files and then did this 2-year series that's all loosely based on Project Blue Book reports. It's kind of like if Dragnet and X-Files had a weird 70s baby, it would be Project UFO. All of the episodes are available on YouTube and you should totally watch it for a couple of reasons. Number one, the special effects alternate between like, wow, that's actually pretty cool for the 70s, and then to what the fuck, like Lost in Space style
dish on a string,
latex silver stretchy uniforms that these like robotic walking guys come out of a spaceship. It's amazing.
I love it.
And some of the episodes have commercials in them from 78. It's fucking incredible. Highly recommend. You should watch all of them.
Wow.
So that was really fun. There were a couple cases that were relevant to this, but I obviously spent way too much time binging those. There's a lot of info out there, you guys, and we're getting more and more. And so keep your eyes peeled. If you see something related to this, let me know, especially one of those cases, because I am going to be chipping away at these. I got a whole pile to go through now. Such cool things. It was very hard for me not to go off down any of these rabbit holes because they are all super fascinating looking, especially freaking Miles City. You can just drive over there too.
It's pretty far.
One of the original Project Moondust cases was in Miles City, Montana. Are you kidding me?
On the other side of the state.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
Nepal. You want to go to Nepal?
Yes, more than Miles City. Kelly, thank you so much for that report.
You're so welcome.
Moon June. I mean, I would say kicking off, but we did Moonfall not too long ago.
Well, that was rough.
Yeah, that was something else.
That made me sad.
Listen, they do want refunds.
I honestly don't blame them. It was bad.
But we got a couple more Moon Junes ahead of us, including I'm taking a really sharp left turn, and I can't wait.
But it's not kids, right?
No kids.
I'm down.
To my knowledge.
I'm ready to roll.
There's always like a bonus kid in one of my stories.
We can just skip that if you want.
You can't. I don't skip details. That's not how I do my stories, Kelly.
Yeah, well, I would recommend that you do that.
That's not what I'm going to do. But until then, though, Kelly, where are you going to be?
I'm going to be researching the individual case files from Project Moondust.
Please just take a break.
Kelly Frightday on Twitter, kelly@frightday.com by email. We have Moony True Tales of Terror.
What?
True Moon Tales of Terror?
No, it's for later in this.
We have True Tales of Terror coming up sometime after Moon June. Please send me your stories. Thank you very much.
I'm at Byron McKoy on Twitter and Instagram. Byron@frightday.com is my email address. And until next episode of Fright Day, please don't microblade your face. Come on. I'm Byron.
Sucky.
Don't just say sucky into the mic. Like that's an okay way to end a show.
It was a quote from Elf. When he's in the mailroom, and he goes, "Ooh, it's sucky."
I'm Kelly.
I'm Kelly.
Keep your eyes to the sky and stay scared. Fuck
Stay
it.
scared.
I don't give a shit. If you don't care, I don't care.
I care. Everybody's job to care.
You've been listening to an Audio Wool original, produced by Byron McKoy. Theme music provided by Cemeteries. For more programs like this, visit audiowool.co.